now time for the Billy C. Show, part of the BillyCBoxing.com network.
And we're coming to you live from the Billy C. Studios in Lake George, New York. I'm Bill Calogero, and it's time for the Billy C. Show. Good morning, good day, good evening, whenever you're watching. I hope. About the Manny Pacquiao, Yordenis Ugas fight from last night. A couple of other things I want to talk about. But let's get started right away. We're going to have Pierpaoli join us. We're going to have Daxx Khann join us. It's been a little bit, but we'll get into our show schedule somewhere along the line in this show. What's coming up, when we're going to be, where we're going to be. We got some great announcements to share with you guys. But first and foremost, let me just say this. Remember one thing, today's show is being brought to us in part by the Title Bout Championship computer game. Get yourself a copy. You can do so by visiting our website, www.BillyCBoxing.com, and just click on the Title Bout banner. Today's show is also being brought to us in part by the Southern Gourmet Spice Company. You know I love this stuff. It's like it's kind of like an addiction, but check it out. www.southerngourmetspice.com. I know, you don't even have to do the www anymore. Just southerngourmetspice.com. And, of course, my book, Tom Molyneux, From Bondage to Baddest Man on the Planet, is available right now where all good books are sold. You can get a copy right now while you're watching or listening to this very show. Just visit barnesandnoble.com or amazon.com. Or just visit our website, BillyCBoxing.com. If you're looking to get a signed copy, just drop me an email, billy@talk.com. All right, first and foremost, last night we had Manny Pacquiao fighting Yordenis Ugas. He was supposed to fight Errol Spence Jr. Errol Spence backed out of the fight with an eye injury. So Ugas stepped in because, ironically enough, Ugas' opponent dropped out too. He was supposed to be the co-main event, and lo and behold, like what seems to happen a lot with the PBC fighters, all of a sudden we have a change. And last night, the 42-year-old Manny Pacquiao stepped into the ring. And, you know, you kind of had a feeling it was the end of the line for him before the fight. You know, we were talking about, possibly he would fight Spence. Would he continue? Should he win? You know, should he go out on with a win? All these things. It didn't work out. Ugas won a unanimous decision. He improves to 27 wins, 4 losses, with 12 of his wins coming by knockout. Manny Pacquiao, future Hall of Famer, one of the best ever. 62 wins, 8 losses, 2 draws, 39 of his wins coming by knockout. The only fighter to win world titles in 8 different weight classes. Started boxing at 98 pounds and was fighting at 147 last night. The way the judges scored it, 115, 113, and 2 of them had it 116, 112. I, too, scored the fight 115, 113, also in favor of Ugas. The way it unfolded for me was that I gave rounds 1, 3, 4, 5, and 11 to Manny Pacquiao. Ugas got the rest. Rounds 2, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and 12. My man Larry Hazard had the same score as me, and pretty much as he was giving his thoughts, I was thinking the same thing. My bottom line thought is this. Manny looked old. He looked every bit of 42. Did not move around, did not utilize what I thought he would. Ugas was a big fighter, was a very disciplined fighter like most Cuban fighters are. The jab gave Manny all kinds of trouble. You know, the big question I had is Manny never made adjustments. You know, Freddie Roach back in the corner. What did Freddie Roach do? You know, I mean, to tell you the truth, Freddie Roach has become a rah-rah man. We saw it in earlier fights. I mean, he's a rah-rah man. He wasn't given any instruction. You know, Manny Pacquiao should have started doing something different. He didn't. For a guy with all the experience that Manny has, he stayed with his game plan and just didn't deviate from it. The problem was, I mean, sometimes that's good. Be patient. But the problem in this fight, Ugas had his number, was picking him apart with his jab, and quite honestly, after rewatching the fight this morning, I said to myself, maybe I was a little too kind to Manny. You know, a lot of those punches that Manny was throwing, those flurries, weren't connecting. You know, it was not the Manny Pacquiao we were used to seeing. You know, I don't know anyone that doesn't love Manny Pacquiao, and if you do, it's only because you love Floyd Mayweather. I mean, let's be real. But the truth of the matter, and let's get that straight right now. Win, lose, or draw, I don't care. People could tell me all day long, well, Manny's got 8 losses and Floyd's got none. Yeah, well, Manny Pacquiao will finish all-time great higher than Floyd Mayweather. Make no mistake, several spots higher. Manny Pacquiao is an all-time great. I believe Floyd Mayweather is an era great. And what I mean by that is Floyd didn't do anything outside of the box like Manny did. Manny has challenged himself. Just look at all his opponents and look at the last handful of opponents that Floyd has done. The one big difference, Floyd never put himself in a position to look as bad as Manny did last night. So I give Floyd credit for that. As far as some comments after the fight, well, Ugas said, my trainer, Ismail Salas, and I had a plan. We were going to move him around. We were going to use the jab and keep him off balance. That was the whole game plan. The right hand was a shot I had planned to use on Manny. It kept working, so I kept making adjustments. It was disheartening to watch, especially I've always been a fan of Manny. Manny said after the fight, in the future you may not see Manny Pacquiao in the ring. I don't know. Let me rest first, relax, and make a decision if I'll continue to fight or not. Listen, let somebody else make the decision for him. Maybe his promoter's pushing him. I don't know, because he's the promoter. But the truth of the matter is, it's done. His wife knew it. She knew it. She couldn't even watch the fight. She knew it wasn't the same Manny in there. It's time for Manny to hang it up. He's got nothing left to prove. He proved one thing last night, that it's over for him, in my opinion. Not much else to say. I'm going to give you guys, he came and won the fight. He's not an exciting fighter like Manny, but he's there. He's in the mix in the WBA. In the welterweight scene, WBA. They got 47 champions by themselves in one division. So, we'll see what happens with you guys. He's 35 years old. More power to him with his gorgeous girlfriend, huh? Oof. In the undercard, at least on the pay-per-view, I normally the PBC fight, their fight cards, especially the pay-per-views, are not worth it. Not that this one was worth it. It wasn't. I honestly don't think. I mean, just because Manny's name was there, you fork over the. But the rest of the card on paper looked like they were just one-sided bouts, but they weren't. They turned out to be very exciting, so I do give credit there. You had in the co-main event was probably the I don't want to say the worst, but the co-main between former champions Robert the Ghost Guerrero and Victor Ortiz ended with a 10-round decision victory for Robert the Ghost Guerrero. That's the good news for him. The bad news for him is that he's going to fight again. He was fighting Victor Ortiz, who hadn't fought in over 3 years. And, the reason why it was an entertaining fight was because you had two guys with a lot of miles on. I can't see Robert the Ghost Guerrero or Victor Ortiz, should he decide to try it again, be competitive with a young gun. I just don't see it. It was an interesting fight for those two guys. For us to watch as fans and for those two guys to fight each other, I thought it was an interesting fight, and it was entertaining. But how about the Mark Magsayo against Julio Ceja fight? What a beautiful fight to have. I like Mark Magsayo. He's been carefully moved, and in that first round, it looked like, oh, man, this is going to be a blowout. And they're all saying, "Oh, he's hurt. Ceja's hurt." He wasn't, though. It was a flash knockdown. He didn't see the punch coming. It was a sneaky hook in there, and he never once, to me. I mean, I wasn't ringside like 90 people that were doing this event, but he wasn't hurt, and the body work that Ceja was throwing on Mark Magsayo was paying off. I mean, he was in pain. That's what made that knockout so much more impressive, in my opinion. He had to dig deep to win this fight. He was afterwards. Truth be told, this was he was losing the fight on all the scorecards. I had given him the first couple of rounds, but he was losing the fight on all the scorecards. But man, did he knock out Ceja? It was. When you watch a replay, he clearly was out already before blow, which endangered him. I thought endangered his life, to be honest with you. But nonetheless. Also on the card to open the pay-per-view, Carlos Castro stopped Oscar Escandon in the final round. This also was an exciting fight. I thought Escandon had an opportunity to win this fight in the very first round. Took Castro a couple of rounds to get going. I would have thought that they would have jumped all over him a little quicker. They let Castro get into a groove. Castro improves to 27-0. Escandon drops to 26-6. By the way, Mark Magsayo 23-0 now, and 128 knockouts. One other thing I wanted to mention real quick is this. The broadcast. All right. I mean, I'm not a big fan. Joe Goosen is good. I'm not a huge fan. I love Brian Kenny. Here's a Kate Abdu, Sean Porter, Keith Thurman. Keith Thurman is the most. I can't stand him in the ring, and I can't stand him out of the ring. I don't know what it is. I mean, I know he's a nice guy. He was coming up with some good stuff. He's actually does a decent job. I don't know. Let's TBA. Let me see. Let me watch a couple more. She makes me sick. Jordan Plant. She's solid, I think. Brian Kenny, Joe Goosen, Larry Hazard. 8 people, man. 8 people for a friggin' broadcast. I mean, I love the days when you had 2, the people calling the fight. And then maybe you slowly introduce that third person to give you the unofficial scorecard. And maybe introduce a 4th person to give you some comments. But this was like, it was overdone, I think. I don't know. Is it me? Is the younger fans like that? I mean, it's become more of a show, more like WWE, like my man Coach has been saying for a long time. It's more like that, in my opinion, than watching a fight. I loved the older style fights, and even in the 80s and stuff. Coming up, we got to see Tommy Hearns was there. He looked mean and as vicious as ever. Don King turned 90 last week, and I'm watching the show, and these things are going through my mind. They flashed the camera on Tommy Hearns, and I'm thinking, wow, those days when you had a pay-per-view event, you'd have these really knockdown, drag-out, evenly matched fights with two top fighters in their respective divisions. You had an announcer, a co-announcer, play-by-play guy, the main guy, and a scorekeeper, basically unofficial score. And it was so, I don't know, it was on point. I also think that the little blurb that they had with Larry Merchant was interesting. It was sort of reminding me of watching the New Year's with Clark, and when it was way over his time, and Larry Merchant hasn't been in front of the camera. At least I haven't seen him in front of the camera in a long time. Although his comments were accurate, the delivery just made me feel old. I'm getting old. but Larry is too. But I don't know how old he is, but he looked pretty good. But I don't know. It was more sad. I got more sadness out of that than I did, pleasure, I guess. I don't know. But one announcement that they made, Canelo Alvarez, Khalid Plant, it's not even on the schedules on the major boxing sites yet. It's signed, sealed, and delivered, set for November 6th. Khalid Plant was in the audience, and they had the camera on him. I mean, it took a little while to sign this fight. Obviously, it's for the undisputed middleweight championship, which is always good. I mean, does Plant really have a chance? I mean, does he have a chance here? I mean, that's my question. It makes you wonder, should he have, his best night, the best night he could have, might not be good enough against Canelo. Canelo's, come on, Canelo's a pound-for-pound fighter. There's no question about that. Top fighter, one of the best fighters out there. I don't know what else to say with that, but it is what it is, I guess. We'll see. When that comes up in November. Some other fights, and let me get into our schedule a little bit. Some other fights that we're thinking about doing. So here's the thing. This show, we've gotten, a lot of. I've been receiving a lot of emails from everybody. You guys know that I was turned off a little bit with the sport, but it's the fire's lit. Unfortunately, the field of players for me aren't there anymore. But I've received tons and tons of emails, and I actually was planning on reading a bunch of them today, but there was too many, and I didn't want to slight anybody. But I'm talking emails from people that had listened to the show years ago, that are listening again. They're listening to the old shows that are out there, and the general consensus is we want you back. We want you on a regular basis. Well, here's the deal. We are going to do a show on a regular basis from now on. But it's only going to be after the big fights. Some of these smaller fights that I really am into that are coming down the pike, don't get me wrong, I want to do the show, but it's just there's not enough to talk about. We may do some smaller blips, stuff like that on them, but I can tell you this. After the Anthony Joshua and Oakslander-Usyk fight in September, we'll definitely be doing a show then. After the Tyson Fury and Deontay Wilder fight in October, we'll be definitely doing a show then. And of course, the Khalid Plant and Canelo Alvarez will be definitely doing a show after those as well. Another thing I want to tell you, we are starting to go on the road a little bit. Yeah. I mean, remember we used to do live events all the time? Well, we're going to be doing them again, and we're going to be focusing. I want to try and do it once a month, and we're going to be focusing on specific type of a guest. Okay, for example, the first one we're going to do is on the author of this new book, Paul Gallagher, a Sonny Liston book, which is right here. And I can't wait. Henry Haskip had sent me a little email. I was included on the email, I should say. It wasn't just to me. But Paul was doing a talk about Sonny Liston. He's regarded as one of the most knowledgeable guys on about Sonny Liston. And, actually he's, hawking the book or whatever. But I got to chat with Paul a little bit, and the guy is knowledgeable about Sonny Liston. Sonny's one of my favorite fighters, so I thought it made the most sense to kick off our new series with him. title bout championship computer game is going to be our title sponsor for those events, and they're going to be at different locations. And in the future, we might have, a fighter on, a current fighter, a former fighter, a future fighter, trainers, and we're going to invite fans. Now, it's not going to be a huge event, whereas, there's a fee or anything like that. We're going to most likely have them in a very closed environment, set it up, have an interview, record it, and then broadcast it. That's the plan. So if you're interested in attending any, let me know. They are going to be scattered around. Most of them will be at least within driving distance for me, and I know Alex is going to be joining me on them, and hopefully Dax will too. So we'll keep you all posted on that as it develops. That's for sure. But we wanted to make sure that you knew that we got stuff going on. I hear it. I hear the calls. I hear the calls for doing things regular. It's just the way the sport's been going. It hasn't really been the same anymore. So for me, anyway, but in any event, listen, we're going to get Dax. I'm sorry, I'm trying to get Dax on, but he's not responding the way Alex just did. So we're going to have Alex on here in a second. And Alex's segment is being brought to us by gourmetspice.com. Check it out, southerngourmetspice.com. Get all those seasonings that I brag about all the time. Kenny Bear's barbecue rub, my new favorite, the Cajun spice, all that stuff is doing great. And hopefully doing great is this guy right now, Alex Pierpaoli. Good morning, Alex.
Good morning, Billy C. How are you?
Where is Alex? I just see this skinny guy in the camera here. But how you doing, my man?
Doing good, feeling good. Little anxiety for Huracan Henry, but I think he's started. I don't know. Is it raining where you are? It's absolutely pouring here.
Not yet, but it feels it. Don't worry. I see that boat in the background. You're ready for this, man.
Right. My buddy's here.
Oh, yeah. Sylvester the Putty Tat, huh? But anyway, the fight last night. We saw Manny Pacquiao. He was aged before he got in the ring. A lot of times people say, "Oh, they aged before our eyes in the ring." Manny was. It's over for Manny. I hope he doesn't continue. I scored the fight the same way, 115, 113. My biggest shock was that Manny made no adjustments, Alex. None. He stayed with the same game plan, and Ugas took advantage of it. They were ready for him, and I thought that the Team Ugas carried their plan out, and Team Pacquiao didn't. And Freddie Roach, what did he do? He was a rah-rah man in the corner. He really didn't do anything. He didn't do anything for any of those fights. I know he put a lot of miles on his sneakers running back and forth from the ring to the dressing room, but I don't think he helped Manny. What was your thoughts on the fight?
Yeah, it was sad it's always sad to see where you realize that Father Time is also one of the opponents in that ring. And I think that's what we saw last night, because I think that he just couldn't. He didn't have another gear in the face of Ugas. Ugas was doing a few things that were very smart. One of the, first of all, is just the size, his frame is that from the very opening bell, it looked like a boy versus a man at times, because Ugas is much larger. And the way he was putting his frame and holding his defense, he was giving himself a difficult angle. Difficult for Pacquiao to get in there. Now, the old Pacquiao, and we did see brief moments of it, could speed in and out and sort of explode across that distance, whap him with
but his accuracy wasn't there, Alex. He missed.
Yeah.
I have never seen Manny Pacquiao take as many punches and miss as many punches as I did last night.
I think you're right, and I think that a lot of that has to do with just the reflexes aren't. He sees the openings, he tries to get his hands there, but the opening is not there anymore because of those reflexes. They're just not what they were. And I think also the other thing is that Ugas was fighting a very smart fight because he was using the jab very well, and he was using multiple jabs. Sometimes a double jab, sometimes sort of a touch jab. That big sweeping right, it got to the point where he was going to the body and the head with that. And at time, I really thought Manny was going to get dropped at some point. I thought he was going to be put down in the 12th. So to me, it was sort of a moral victory in the sense that, I don't know, I kind of wonder, if it was Errol Spence, I think Spence could have really hurt him. Because I kind of, when I heard that it was Pacquiao-Spence, the fight I thought about was Sugar Ray Leonard versus Terry Norris. And I don't think that Ugas beat Manny up to the extent that Terry Norris beat up Sugar Ray Leonard, but I do feel like it's an ending. Now, will it be the ending? I don't know, because remember, with Sugar Ray Leonard, he fought one more time and had to get knocked out, get knocked out by Hector Camacho to realize, okay, yeah, it's over. I hope Manny doesn't need to be knocked out. But yeah, to me, that was a sign that he couldn't make those adjustments. I don't understand why he didn't give him some movement. He literally stayed right in front of him, Bill, like he thought thought at some point, well, my power's going to get to him. But why would he think that?
Because he's hearing he's hearing that stuff in his ear. It's the same thing when, like, with a Deontay Wilder, who's hearing that he's the baddest guy. Oh, nobody can stay, and they start believing it. As a if you're trying to jack somebody up and give them confidence, it's one thing to be a confidence builder. But when they start believing it, and that's why I mentioned when we first started talking was, what did Freddie Roach do? Freddie Roach was the guy saying he's going to knock him out. He's going to knock him out. And even in the pre-fight interview, say, "Oh, Freddie Roach said he's going to knock him out." And Manny he didn't jump on that bandwagon. If the knockout comes. But you're right. He stood there, and it makes you wonder if what Brian Kenny was saying was true. Was his legs gone? Well, can he not move? Because movement. And all Ugas had to do was kind of like pivot. He kept pivoting around and around like a circle. And there was Manny right there, ready to eat another jab.
Yeah, he was directly in front of him, and the only movement he gave was in and out, and it got to the point where even that was in infrequent bursts. Even though I think he did throw more punches. I think that's the thing. He always has. The welterweight Manny Pacquiao didn't score knockouts like the featherweight Manny Pacquiao. There were times he stunned the hell out of guys with his speed, but then it usually would take a while. Because if you think about Cotto, I think he put Cotto down, or at least badly stunned him in round 1. But it wasn't until, the 11th or something that fight was finally finished. So that's the thing about Pacquiao's power at 147. It's more of this accumulation of blows. You're being rained on.
Yeah,
maybe it's appropriate for today. And it gets to the point where everything everything leaves you. It's an erosion of all your skills, your will, and you eventually get stopped. Now I don't think he's landing with that same force that even he had when he was, 5 fights ago, 6 fights ago. Because if you think about it, the Jeff Horn fight, I thought he legitimately lost a close fight that night. So if you think about that, then this wasn't really an upset. I think that it was sad because it does seem like it could be the end of an era that was a terrific era. But it did seem, it was kind of sad that, and I think this always happens with an old great, is that it seems like they need a gear that's not there anymore, or they can't get into anymore. And everything you mentioned, we would have seen from the old Manny, and he couldn't do it. He didn't, there wasn't enough head movement, there wasn't a game plan shift in the face of adversity. And I think that's what was cool about, maybe that we saw a bit of a passing of a torch. And I think, Bill, this is another good thing. Like I heard some of what you were saying before as I was trying to log on with everything and update my, of course I had to change my password.
I hate that.
That idea, that showmanship idea, the whole night would have been felt much more dramatic had the order been shifted on the supporting bouts. If that Ortiz-Guerrero fight came before the Magsayo-Ceja bout, if it was then that card would have been a crescendo of excitement, and we would have felt like, wow, it's bye-bye to the king, and it's hello to the new king. And that Magsayo is going to be maybe the new Manny Pacquiao, because that was a thriller. And Manny, the way they promoted it was that Manny saw this guy and saw something of himself in this young guy, and he sure delivered, because Ceja was battering him to the body, and I thought he was going to end up, losing that. And then he comes back with a knockout that's going to be one of the KOs of the year. If we had gone from that bout to the main event, it would have been felt a lot better as a fan than having to suffer through because the Ortiz-Guerrero fight was more interesting in the sense that as a novelty almost. They sold it as if it was 2015 or something, and we still cared about those two guys.
Yeah, the sad thing about that fight was I gave credit to the whole card. It was entertaining, which is generally not the case with a PBC, big fight card. They're just not. They're one-sided. And on paper, every fight looked like it was going to be a one-sided fight, except for the Guerrero-Ortiz fight. You didn't know what you were going to get. But the thing about that particular fight was it was evenly matched in a sense where you had two guys that were old. And, the sad part is assuming that Guerrero's going to move on and he's going to step in the ring with a young fighter that he's not going to, he had trouble with Ortiz. And Ortiz is Ortiz. You heard him and he's like, oh, wait a minute. Wait, time out. I think I cut myself, but yeah, Magsayo fight, great fight. He was losing that fight. I disagreed with the commentators. They're saying, Ceja's hurt. He's still hurt. He was never hurt. That knockdown did not hurt him. It was a flash knockdown. You saw it in his face. He got right back up. He was embarrassed, and it woke him up, because that was the worst thing he could have done, I thought, Magsayo, doing that to Ceja, because after that knockdown, Ceja was just whooping his ass until that stoppage. So, yeah, no, I'm with you there. But I hope Pacquiao hangs him up. I think he should have hung it up after the Keith Thurman. That was the last big fight that he pulled out of the bag against a top fighter. That was the time for him to walk away. And like you said, a lot of times they just don't. They know what to do. They have all this experience. Their bodies just don't respond. It was evident last night that Manny Pacquiao is done. And like I said, his wife knows it. She couldn't even watch the fight from the opening.
My God, I know.
From the opening bell. From the opening bell, she knew it wasn't going to go his way. And I agree with you. I thought Pacquiao was going to get stopped. I did give him the 11th round on my card, but 10th, 11th, and 12th, he was taking some hard shots, and he was not. I also agree with you about the speed. His speed seemingly was there, but his accuracy was not. That's why that accumulation of punches was not affecting Ugas, although he started getting a couple of knots in his head. But when was the last time you saw Manny Pacquiao when he was in the ring with someone other than Juan Manuel Marquez connect with so many punches?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I think, and that was what was happening, is that this was a big, strong welterweight who I wonder, I didn't see if they did show weight before, what he weighed on fight night. I didn't catch it. But I'm always curious about that, especially in that first round. I was just like, wow, look at the size difference. And I wonder if Ugas was up to 155, 160.
He was like Iran Barkley, for God's sakes.
I wonder, because he just a lot larger. It never was a grappling. There was a couple of times where I did see him sort of use his size to push Manny down once or twice. But I saw a lot of people talking about him as a dirty fighter. He was not dirty at all last night. That low blow I thought it was a bad call, to be honest. But then the replay showed most of the glove was actually on the white under the band, because I thought it was on the band of the trunks. But the replay did show that Mora made a good call, that most of that was a low blow.
And it was a good no point deduction. Right. But if it would have happened again, I could have seen him losing a point. It would have changed the outcome of the fight, obviously. But
it would have been a big deal. It could have been, and I think that was the best part of it, was that we didn't see a gift decision to Manny, because that would have really, to me, it would have really been bad for boxing if that had happened. We've had enough bad decisions this year for. I just was glad it wasn't in a big event like this. The right guy won.
A gift decision would have been a draw, because if they would have somehow given Manny that win, you're right. Speaking of,
I had it a little wider than you. I think I had it 8-4. So 116, 112.
Well, I admit, when I watched the fight again this morning, because I actually, believe it or not, I actually stayed up and watched the whole card last night, which I normally can't do anymore, but I did, and I watched it again this morning real quick, and I was a little kind to Manny. A couple of the early rounds that I scored for Manny, looking back this morning, he wasn't landing punches that it appeared, and I think the judges bit the same thing I did, but. In any event, the broadcast itself, 8 people, Alex, 8 people.
There's a lot of them.
I mean, Kate Abdu, I love her. I could watch her. I wish I was watching her every day in my house, but I have no problem with her. Sean Porter, gotta love him. Keith Thurman, there's something about him I just don't like, but he seemed knowledgeable. That Heidi Andro, can't stand her. She just doesn't fit. I don't know who she hooked up with to get her job there, but she's terrible. Jordan Plant, she was solid. Let me go on, because Brian Kenny was there, Joe Goosen was there, Larry Hazen was there. 8 people for that freaking broadcast. I mean, I don't know how many you need. I was just reminiscing about, watching the old fights. Don King turned 90 years old. They used to have 2 guys, a blow-by-blow and a commentator, and then they introduced Howard Letterman with obviously I'm talking HBO, with a scorekeeper. Maybe slowly get that 4th person in to do the, corner stuff. But 8 people, dude. I mean, I thought it was a little bit overkill. What do you think?
There were a couple of times where I was like, how many people are they going to go to?
Yeah.
How many more opinions do we have to get on this? It is a little much. I don't understand, that's just it, is that these guys all copy each other. So it seems like they all have a big team like that now. The only one that is the same all the time seems to be Showbox. That's the only one that has 3 guys, and it's always 3 guys. There's never 2 guys that start you off, and then they throw it to 3 guys who might throw it to 2 other guys, who then might cut to a guy in the locker room or a gal in the locker room, and then cut over to somebody else who's standing in the crowd with getting a crowd reaction. Yeah, it is kind of crazy. I don't know. It is hyper-produced, and I think there was an element of that to the whole broadcast, to the whole thing, is that it was very easy to see that this could be, you know, a bad night for Pacquiao, especially when it was going to be Spence. I mean, that was part, for me, it was like, wow, this will be it. This will be the passing of the torch. God bless Manny Pacquiao for being willing to do this, to, at 42 years old, put himself in harm's way, and sort of put himself on the altar of boxing, to go out like a champion by blood, against the top welterweight. Well, when that fight, you know, fell apart, it became sort of a consolation prize. And then I think, like everybody else, I did dare to think, well, maybe Manny still has it, you know, and could beat this guy. I didn't fall into that idea that, oh yeah, he could stop him, which I think, and you're right, I think that whole thing with Freddie Roach and Manny Pacquiao have almost become part of a show. It's a team. It's a promotion together. He does this again and again, where Freddie Roach guarantees Manny's never looked better than this. He's knocking guys out in sparring, and you're very likely to see a knockout this time. I know he hasn't done it in a while, but this one is going to be it. There's going to. Hasn't he said that like 6 fights in a row? And
who still listens? It's like Danny Garcia and his father, or Robert Ghost Guerrero and his father. You know, I mean, the thing is that's my whole point. You know, when you watch, okay, so let's be real. The broadcast is for the home audience, right? So they're trying to entice the home audience, the home viewer, to give them something to justify shelling out whatever the price tag's going to be on a pay-per-view or even a regular broadcast. So they're trying to help the home viewers experience. So they add this other stuff behind the scenes, in the locker room, in the corner, live, blah blah blah, right? But as a home viewer, not being there, because anybody out there that's never seen a fight live, ringside or just anywhere in the venue, you're missing out, because there's no other sport like it live. Boxing live is the best. But watching it at home, Alex, and being fortunate enough to have been watching boxing for as long as I have. I mean, really, you go back into the 70s for me, early 70s, maybe even late 60s, that I recall these fights on TV. Compared to the way they look now, I mean, the video and the high definition on these new TVs and the way the cameras are picking it up. I mean, you know, when they did the intros and they go from one camera shot to across the ring to the other corner, that was pretty slick. I felt like I was in the ring. I really did, you know, and I think that's enough. You know, I think if you're watching it from home, if you get the feeling you're in that ring, you know, you're seeing that close-up. You're seeing those punches in almost 3D. I think it's enough. I don't need 8 freaking people to be telling me all the same shit, dude. I just don't. You know, I mean, yeah, okay, I'll admit, I'm a dirty old man. I love seeing all those hot girls. I really do. But, you know, I mean, not all of them are that knowledgeable. You know, and you know, you can only just drool over enough. I mean, Ugas' wife, girlfriend, whatever, she did it for me. I mean, all I had to do was see her. That's it. I'm good. You know, you know, we'll keep Kate up there in the tower, wherever they were. But I don't need the other ones. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, to me, I agree with you. It just seems that these all these teams that have more than 3 people, and even sometimes 3 people, is too much. A 3-person broadcast team. You know, I came in the '80s, and that's what I got used to. You know, and a lot of interviews, it was 2. It was Tim Ryan and Gil Clancy. And then sometimes they'd have an ex-fighter who'd come in for a couple rounds or come in for one fight of a pay-per-view card. One of my favorite broadcasts ever, and it's up there in one of my favorite fights, is Tommy Hearns versus Juan Roldan. And that was Tim Ryan, Gil Clancy, and Marvelous Marvin Hagler. They didn't cut to anybody in between rounds and say, oh, did you talk to his cousin? What does his cousin say in the crowd? Did we get his reaction? Those kind of things that, times have changed, and I think reality TV, I would blame, because there's this idea that the show is bigger than what was just going on.
I think that's it. I think that's it right there. They think it's a show, and really boxing, it shouldn't be treated like, it's not wrestling. It's not WWE. It's not a show. It's two guys fighting. I think.
Yeah, to me, it's like, isn't that enough? These two guys are trying to hurt each other for your entertainment. Can't we focus on that for a minute?
I think the fan has changed, Alex. They can't pay attention. So they need other stuff. They need some more fluff in there. Two more things I want to ask you. One, Tommy Hearns still had a mean look. The shiver went up my back when they put the camera on him. Did you catch that?
I did. I heard them announce him, but I was in the other room and I didn't see it. When I got back in time, it was.
Oh my God! It looked typical Tommy Hearns. I mean, he's just staring at the camera, and it was just like, is he coherent or is it just Tommy Hearns? Because what a menacing stare. There's no question about it.
Oh yeah. That's one of my one of the scariest stare downs is even though he ends up losing that night, his stare down with Marvin Hagler. I would never want anyone I love to be looked at in that way.
Greatest fight. That's still the greatest live fight I've ever seen. 3 rounds of the most action-packed fight I've ever seen live. It was great. The other question I have for you is Larry Merchant. They brought Larry on. I know you're a big fan of Larry. And, what he was saying, the dialogue was actually interesting. It was all there. But I kind of felt I was never a Larry Merchant fan, ever. I've never liked the guy. He was a guy, in my opinion, that tried to take boxing and make it, more like literal, fancy words and all that stuff. To me, I like the dems and do's and these guys and stuff like that. And, he brought the education to the sport, and it to me, it never fit. But last night, I felt a little sorry for him. He's aged, and it almost reminded me of when they would drag Dick Clark out for the New Year's Eve things, and as soon as I saw this, I can't wait to get Alex's thoughts. What did you think? Did you think, hey, he's just getting old? I mean, Don King turned 90. I mean, we're all getting old. Was it just an age thing? Or did you see something like what I'm saying?
I think that the part that makes it uncomfortable, is the age part. Is that, yes, I didn't look up his age, but I think because when I met him, remember I had that great moment where he was in the press room for Canelo Kovalev, and I got to just stand there and talk to him for a little while, and I think he was, I want to say 89 then, and wasn't that 2 years ago? Because I thought I remember looking up at that time. I did not look it up. I'm sorry about that. But I think he could very well be over 90 if he isn't 90. I think, the way he looked and sounded, of course, that's what's going on there. But I thought that was one of the things that I thought I appreciated last night, because even though in this world of all the different networks and all these different affiliations and allegiances to corporations, and I will work with them only and only them, it was nice for them to see, this guy, as much as he was a corporate guy in the sense that he worked for one network, he was also a historian and a voice of the sport. And he was so stitched together with Manny, especially like Manny was the sort of the Sugar Ray Leonard of the 21st century for HBO. And I thought it was appropriate. And I'm pretty sure that picture he was holding up, that must have been a shot of the first fight, which I think was the anniversary just recently of Pacquiao versus Leilani Ledwaba, who actually just passed away a few months ago from COVID-19, who was the South African fighter that Manny beat on the undercard of De La Hoya Castillejo, and that was his breakout fight. And I don't know if you remember, but he had this like little sprig of blonde hair, and he put a whooping on Ledwaba, and he stole the show that night. And it was cool. There was this sort of connection in that Larry was there at the beginning, and he's there now. So I kind of like that. But yeah, he definitely... Father, I tell you, if anybody won big last night and he's looming over everything and it's like nobody wants to say it, it's Father Time.
Yeah, he's still undefeated. He's still undefeated, man. But anyway, Alex, I appreciate your time. We will be doing some post-fight shows coming up. Anthony Joshua, Usyk, definitely. Fury, Wilder. You know, the Usyk-Joshua fight is becoming more intriguing for me. You know, at first I didn't give Usyk a chance in hell, but you know, his boxing ability, you know, may make this more interesting than I thought. The Tyson Fury Deontay Wilder fight, I don't see any change. I don't care. And you know what? You know what shocked me? Dan Goosen yesterday. He's going, oh, he's got Malik Scott in his. This guy is knowledgeable. He's this, he's that. And I'm going, Malik Scott. I'm saying to myself, wait a minute, not the same Malik Scott I'm thinking of, right? And he's knowledgeable. You know, better than his previous trainer, Mark Breland. I mean, you know. So I'm saying, oh, it's good thing Fury got COVID because you know Wilder needs the extra time. Yeah, I don't know, man. Wilder lost the first two fights. To me, the gift was the draw. There was no doubt about the second fight, and really, it's BS that we're being forced to a third fight. And then, of course, Canelo Alvarez, Khalid Plant. I don't think it's going to be too competitive. No disrespect to Plant, but those are the next three. Plus, we're going to sprinkle in our excursion, which I'll talk to you about later on in the week or so. But aside from that,
I tell you that the Joshua Usyk, I'm very, like you are, I'm very excited about that because I have a, you know, it's very easy to think, well, Usyk won't be able to get past the size, and Joshua will just thump away at him from a distance and win an easy unanimous decision, maybe kind of boring. But I think you'd be wrong. It would be wrong to think that Usyk would tolerate that because he has something in him that, you know, I think that he's the guy that sort of, if there's anybody that can become a star in the heavyweight division in the current landscape, I think it is him. So especially the thing about Joshua that we know is that this chin, there's a huge question mark here.
But does Usyk have the power to get him?
He might, yeah, because I think the thing about it is if you just put a few blows of dynamite on there, maybe he can't do it in one shot, but he might be able to do it in 3 shots. And he is the kind of guy that can get in close and do that. But, you know, it's easy to say before seeing how he takes those thumps.
Are you thinking Michael Spinks, Larry Holmes?
I think he very well could win that kind of a fight.
Because that's how remember the first fight. Michael Spinks, he was in his face, bam, 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 and then backed away. Yeah. And I'll never forget. It was awkward. The way he fought was Michael Spinks was awkward, and he landed the punches, and he won the fight. You know, and I think Usyk could do that. I don't think he could knock out Joshua, and the question's going to be, can he handle a pop from Joshua? You know, but it's going to be an interest. Like I said, as it's getting closer, it's becoming more interesting to me.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that one, especially just because of the size differential. It's fascinating. And there was another one that Wilder Fury. Yeah, I don't see anything different happening in that. That's another one. And what in terms of corporate shilling, that to me was sort of a hard sell. That was almost like a Glengarry Glen Ross moment there when Goosen was going on about the talents of Malik Scott. Those to me, I'm like, really? I agree with you. I was much more impressed with Mark Breland in the corner. But to me, it remains to be seen that Malik Scott and Wilder are some, this brain trust of a partnership.
What's Malik Scott going to do for Deontay Wilder? I mean, the guy doesn't know how to fight. He doesn't know how to fight. He's got power. He's a one-trick pony. We've said it all along. So what's Malik Scott gonna be able to do against Tyson Fury? How's he gonna help? I mean, you need discipline and you need some skill if you even want to think about beating Tyson Fury. Now, granted, the punching power of Deontay Wilder is the equalizer, and I still believe that he could knock out Tyson Fury easily should he be able to connect. I mean, we've seen it. We saw him rock him a couple of times already. One time he almost killed him. But that's not the part that Tyson Fury knows that. So he's got to have something else that Tyson Fury's not going to be prepared for, and Malik Scott is not that guy. Deontay Wilder blaming everyone else for losing, including the costume, it says it all to me. It says that this guy's not holding himself accountable. He's a punk, and he's a punk with power. And the outcome's going to be the same. That's my opinion. Now, if him and Joshua fought, I think Deontay Wilder has a better chance of beating Anthony Joshua than Tyson Fury does. I've said this all along. Everybody laughs at me. But
no, I absolutely agree with you because I think that's Joshua. We all know that if you hit Joshua hard on the chin, he's going down. Joshua knows if I get hit hard on the chin, I'm going down. I'm fighting the guy who's probably the hardest puncher in the sport. That would be an anxiety that would weigh on him for every second of 12 rounds.
Right, he'd be waiting for that punch. He'd actually be waiting for it,
that would make it an interesting fight.
I think that was the Deontay Wilder, Anthony Joshua. As much as I like Joshua, I leaned towards Wilder on that fight because of the punching power. But Joshua, Tyson Fury, I've said it from day one, I don't see Tyson Fury beating Anthony Joshua. Everyone says I'm nuts. They say I'm nuts because, Tyson Fury's boxing skill, blah, blah, blah. Well, he also leans on people. He uses his size, which he can't do against Joshua. So we'll see. We'll see unless Deontay Wilder beats Tyson Fury, then what do we see? A fourth friggin' fight between these guys? You got to have a rematch clause in there should Tyson Fury lose. So I mean,
Well, I just hope we don't get another rematch of the postponement. So we would have to get another postponement, and this would have to be a Wilder postponement.
When are the fans gonna get sick of that shit? I mean, really, I'm sick of it. It's caused me to not even watch it anymore as much as I used to. I never missed a fight. Dax and I would talk about fights that nobody even knew was on any kind of air, whether it be a stream or on TV. Many times we would talk about fights that no one's even heard of the fighters. And now, there's more postponements. There's more... last minute cancellations or substitutes. I mean, it's a joke.
Yeah. We're living in an era where I think that if you're the fan of one specific fighter, you have to buy into all the excuses. Otherwise, you cannot handle the inactivity of your fighter. I think that's one thing. The other thing, if you love the sport, you're okay. You suffer a little bit and die inside a little bit every time one of these postponement happens.
Yeah, but we don't have fans.
Usually enough to sustain you because you still get great moments. I don't know, Billy C. I probably woke my neighbors up. I was going nuts with that Magsayo.
I know, that was a good fight.
Magsayo fight.
That was a good fight.
I couldn't believe that knockout. This sport, there's nothing like it. So to me, I agree. As a fan I got started watching it in '85, and I've been watching consistently, and it has changed a lot. But the fights themselves, they're still what makes me come back. And I don't know. Congratulations to Ugas, because I thought he boxed very, very well. That jab was beautiful, and that changed everything. Controlled everything,
A victory over Manny Pacquiao, be as it may, he was 42, doesn't matter. That just changed Ugas's life. And whatever happens from here on out, doesn't matter. He's got that on his belt. So
absolutely.
Anyway,
do you think Manny will run for president?
I do, and I think that's another reason why he needs to just hang him up. I think that his little spat with that nutcase that's in there now, is pretty crazy too.
Yeah.
But the Filipino people love him so much. Hearing the story of Magsayo, we used to camp out where he was working out just to see him. I said to myself, man, when was the last time we had a figure like that in the United States? It had to be 50 years. I don't even know who that could have been. But everyone loves Manny, and I'm sure Manny Pacquiao fans are saying he got robbed last night, but in any event, it was a great run, and I hope we saw the last of him. But we won't see the last of you, that's for sure. But I'll be talking to you soon.
Awesome, Billy C. Great to be with you. Thanks.
Take care. That's my man, Alex Pierpaoli, and giving us his thoughts on the fights last night and some other stuff. We're going to be getting Daxx Khann on the phone here. Getting some issues with connecting him for some reason, but I'm looking forward to hearing from him in a few minutes. I just wanted to make sure that everyone knows that we will be coming back for some of the big fights, doing our post-fight just like we're doing right now, until the sport gets back to being more real. I hate to say it, because there's a lot of young fans out there that don't like me, don't like this show. We want to be more back to the roots, and the roots were, for us anyway, the roots were the historical aspect, and that's what we want to get back to. But speaking of getting back, listen, my man Dax is going to join us here in a second, and Dax's segment is being brought to us by my book, Tom Molyneux, From Bondage to Baddest Man on the Planet, is available right now where all good books are sold. Get yourself a copy by visiting Amazon.com or BarnesandNoble.com. It's that simple. But not so simple was me connecting with my man Dax, who joins us right now. Good morning, Dax.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you great. I can hear you.
Yeah, it's weird because what I'm hearing from you and the feed that's live is actually about 15 seconds away.
Well, that other feed on that live feed is about 15 seconds away. Anyway, yeah, it's weird. It was showing you not on. So it's a good idea that you had connecting with me. But anyway, thoughts on the fight last night? Very well, and hopefully Manny Pacquiao's last fight. What's your thoughts?
Yeah, whether or not you are closer to 43 than 42, because Pacquiao turns 43 in December, if you're out of the ring for 2 years, and considering what everything has gone through worldwide on top of that, most likely, you weren't actually in the gym on a regular basis, where fighters are always like, oh, but I'm in the gym every day. So when you contribute all that and you contribute age and the fact that Manny Pacquiao started out at 112 pounds and, he worked his way up to 154 and, what he's put his body through over the years, then no, you can't expect him to come in there, even if it was a 30-year-old Manny Pacquiao in top shape, let alone a, closer to 43 Manny Pacquiao. And again, Ugas is a guy that has the type of style that's always troubled Manny. You mentioned Jeff Horn earlier, who has a similar style as Ugas in terms of it's just ugly. I mean, Ugas is a guy that I would rather watch Barthélemy versus Fortuna about 100 times than have to watch Ugas more than once.
See, he showed to me he was a typical Cuban fighter. I mean, he's very disciplined, fighting behind the jab. I thought I kind of blamed Manny for not changing anything. He did the same thing over and over and over, and that was exactly why Ugas had no pressure on him. They did the same thing. They were connecting with the jab, they were connecting with punches, and like I said earlier, I never saw Manny miss as many shots as he did last night, Dax.
No, and again, like I said, you have to credit that to the fact that he is. I mean, there's no taking away from the win. It was a good win for Ugas, but there's no taking away from the fact that Manny Pacquiao is a fighter in his 40s. Remember, if Manny Pacquiao, for whatever reason, wasn't able to jump up all those weight classes, the average fighter below 126 pounds is done by the time they're 30, let alone 42.
No, that's a great point.
Remember, there was a day when if you were a heavyweight and you were 30 years old, you were considered a senior citizen practically.
Exactly.
So, the combination of it all is, give Ugas the credit for winning. And again, hopefully, as you and Alex stated, that this is the last fight for Manny. And, fade off. If you want to go out on a win, come back, get yourself an easy opponent. I believe, some guys throughout their career deserve that easy opponent, and Manny Pacquiao is certainly one of those guys that, he can go up into a win on, fade off into a win on. But if not, just call it a day, because obviously he's not going to be able to come in there and compete with these younger guys anymore.
How about a final fight? If he's got to have a final fight to go out on a win, could you see against Robert Agos Guerrero type guy who just came off the win against Ortiz?
No, I would say somebody like Samuel Vargas.
Mm-hmm. Okay, well, Samuel Vargas, though, I don't know. You would need a bigger name, though.
Yeah, I'm just saying if you just want to go off on paper, you know what I mean? For a win on paper. Manny doesn't need, right? He has nothing left to prove.
Well, he could always pull a Mayweather. He could always pull a Mayweather and fight a wrestler or a YouTuber. There
was already talk mentioned before that the Manny was saying that he wanted Mayweather too. There was actually, I know a lot of people, you and Alex are talking about, the difference in the terms of fans and how they have to have different shows and how, it's become more of a WWE style event. And, a lot of fans don't pay attention to everything that's going on in boxing. They, like everything else, fans see what they want to see. There was always a question on whether or not that Pacquiao was actually even going to fight Errol Spence. Remember, Yordenis was scheduled to fight Maidana, Fabian Maidana on the undercard of this fight, which was awful weird since Fabian Maidana, the only thing he's had to do with the WBA at all in terms of titles was a Federable super welterweight title back in 2016 against, an opponent nobody knows of and an opponent who never made a single defense of that title. Errol Spence, when he first came back from that car accident, everybody was always asking, what's wrong with his eye? What's wrong with his eye? Because there was a hematoma that was there for a long, long time, even before, the Danny Garcia fight, which was back in December. And, so then there was also talk about, and a couple places who did some interviews made the mistake of, and actually have screenshots of it, and then there was a couple press releases that were sent out, I don't know if you had gotten them, that, where they actually made a mistake of talking about, Crawford and Spence, and mentioning that Terrence Crawford was actually in training for a fight against Errol Spence. And then all of a sudden we hear about the Sean Porter situation where the WBO ordered Sean Porter as the #1 challenger. Now Sean Porter comes out and Sean Porter was saying he was thrilled because he was getting ready for a different fight against an unnamed opponent. More or less it looked like as if everybody outside of the PBC was more, was thinking that this fight was all set in stone and ready to go. And inside the PBC and those around the camp of Errol Spence and Manny Pacquiao were hoping that Errol Spence was going to be healed up and he was going to be in shape enough and he was going to be healthy enough in terms of whatever was going on with the eye. And he also had some other facial damage from that car accident, that this fight was going to go ahead. Otherwise, it wouldn't have been such a quick change, and there would have been no valid reason for a guy like Ugas to face anybody like Fabian Maidana.
Well, it worked out for Ugas, that's for sure, and I don't think, Spence, I've lost a lot of respect for him since that accident and everything else, but I don't think Pacquiao would have been able to handle himself against Spence, that's for sure. But some of the...
No, I don't think so either. But my point of the matter is I honestly don't believe that Errol Spence is in the condition that they would like us to believe in terms of how he has recovered from that car accident.
No, I agree with you there. So on the undercard, we had a couple of pretty exciting fights. Alex was talking about the Mark Magsayo fight, and Magsayo fought Julio Ceja. The announcing team made it seem like Ceja was in serious trouble in that first knockdown. I didn't think so. I thought it was a flash knockdown, and Magsayo obviously won with a huge knockout, but was losing on all those scorecards, and the bodywork that Ceja was laying on him was paying off. What was your thoughts on that fight?
Well, Ceja, remember, he entered that fight, I believe, 0-2-1 in his last 3, and he was not only stopped in 2 of those fights, but, he lost points. Rigondeaux stopped him, and Frank Manzilla stopped him, and they were both ugly fights up until then. Ceja was at his best at bantamweight and super bantamweight. And yes, early, I don't think, I think they did make a bigger deal out of that knockdown, considering the way Ceja came up. And then all of a sudden, you hear people, especially on social media, and I believe somebody on the PBC broadcast team actually started referring to Ceja's body work in terms of Julio Cesar Chavez Sr. like. And it did look like Magsayo was starting to fade a little bit around the 8th round. Then he gets that second win, and I thought Ceja still was doing well, but he made a fatal mistake that a lot of fighters make, whether or not they're fighters early in their career, or we've seen against elite world champions, where he went straight back as Magsayo was coming forward, and Ceja had no place to go but that back to hit the ropes, which allowed Magsayo to land that punch and put Ceja out for the night, and it was kind of a scary knockout at first.
It was, and I'm glad you brought that up, because here we are in Vegas. And, a lot of the medical rules, so to speak, have come out of there, Dr. Goodman, but they didn't seem to treat it. I know in New York, you and I have said a lot of times that it's an overkill. They got, 5 doctors ringside for each fight, but not really. They have 2, but still. I was surprised they let him try to walk away himself. They had to help him out of the ring. They were basically helping him for the ring, the walk back to the dressing room. I don't know. He was showing signs of maybe they should have taken him out on a stretcher. How do you think the commission handled that?
No, the commission didn't. At minimum, they didn't give him enough time to make sure that he was steady on his feet to leave him walk back to the dressing room, where customarily would be is when the doctor comes back and examines you further and then decides whether or not that you should go to the hospital. That's why we always hear about on TV that, fighter A was rushed to the hospital after a certain knockout. But, Vegas, they didn't handle that well. And, it's, the going back to the ropes, again, I do believe that's what cost Ceja that fight. You can ask anybody in the gyms that, I deal with. That's one thing I yell at fighters at for the most. As soon as your back touches that ropes, just turn away, get off it. Don't even go back towards the ropes. I'm one of those guys who, consistently is a fan of fighters that spin around in circles, because, like I stated, how many fighters, if you think about it, over the years on a higher level than, either one of these guys have been knocked out by making that same mistake of going straight back.
Yeah, no doubt. And, I'm not.
And what makes it even worse at times is when you go straight back like that, and then you do realize, okay, my back has touched the ropes, and the fighter starts to come off of there. they're more or less, a lot of times, that adds to the power of the punch because they're coming forward as your opponent is coming forward.
Right, and that's exactly what happened. And Kenny Bayless, who I believe it was Kenny Bayless was doing that fight, he was, for the most part, letting them fight, and he was right there. I was surprised that if I'm pretty sure it was him. It was either him or I forget who the ref was in that fight. I'm pretty sure it was Bayless, but he was right there, and it was us with the benefit of the replay. He was clearly going down when he got that second shot. I don't know. It happened so quick. I don't know if the referee could have done anything, but.
It's hard to jump in on that, especially when a fighter, and it's hard for a fighter when they are in motion. Fighters, when they train, they practice. Doesn't matter on what level.
And he was winning the fight. They
practice, for combination. So when you're in the middle of a combination, even if your opponent is going down, sometimes it's actually hard to stop your body because of muscle memory, from halting immediately.
So they announced Canelo Alvarez Khalid Plant set for November 6th for the undisputed super middleweight title. What's your thoughts on this fight?
I'm actually looking more forward to the Caleb Plant fight.
What did I say?
Khalid.
Khalid, Caleb, whatever, man. I murdered the English. I thought I said like Jordan Plant or something. I don't know, but let me rephrase that. The Alvarez Plant fight is coming up in November. What do you think? I mean, does Plant have a chance or what?
Canelo Alvarez has reached the status that the guy that you love to hate reached, where he is so good. It doesn't matter if it was the Kentucky Fried Chicken guy. People are going to be all over social media talking about how it's either an easy fight, it's a cherry pick fight, or whether or not that he's finally going to be exposed. I had made a joke, I believe it was yesterday on social media, talking about if Ugas beats Pacquiao, who wants to volunteer to keep count on how many people are on social media, whether it be Twitter or Facebook, saying that Canelo has moved up to 168 so he can duck Ugas moving up to 154 pounds. And, Plant is a guy that he's fast, he's good on his feet, but he has never faced anybody of Canelo Alvarez's caliber.
Never.
Billy Joe Saunders is levels above anybody Caleb Plant has ever faced. Remember, Caleb Plant, his biggest wins are over Jose Uzukatui and Mike Lee. So what's going to happen is Canelo, he does have trouble with movers. We know that. But Eddie Reynoso, who has more or less turned into pretty much the most elite trainer in the sport, as we heard in the Kovalev fight, when he tells Canelo, just relax, it's going to come. Same thing with the Billy Joe Saunders fight. It's like, just relax, it's going to come. Canelo is a guy that, as we stated in the Billy Joe Saunders fight, where he sets things up. And that's what's going to be the downfall of Caleb Plant. Canelo makes it look like he's throwing them uppercuts from way far away, that he's overcommitting because he wants you to go exactly to the side he wants you to go, and that's exactly what happened with Billy Joe Saunders, and that's what happened to his face. And the thing about Canelo is he's reached that point. Remember, when he gets back to the corner, he actually told Eddie Reynoso it was over. And he asked him how come he knows. He goes, I felt his face crush. And I can see the same thing happening with Caleb Plant. Because I think Caleb Plant, he jumps around too much. He moves around too much. And, he's perfectly, he's tailor-made for Canelo, more or less. Canelo's going to walk him down. The first time Plant feels one of those body shots that Canelo digs into him, it's going to be a whole new level that he has never been on before. And the fight's going to be over by the 7th round.
Canelo has clearly cemented himself as one of the greatest fighters of all time. And I don't know if I would have said this several years ago, but it's pretty obvious now. And, the big difference with him and Manny versus, like you said, the guy I love to hate, is that they've challenged themselves. Manny has challenged himself all throughout his career, including last night. And Canelo has too. I mean, yeah, of course he's had some easier fights, but he's pushed the envelope, moving up and down and back and forth in weight. I mean, the guy is 56-1 with 2 draws, 38 knockouts. His only loss came to Floyd, and when Floyd was smart enough to know, let me get this kid before he learns a couple of more things. There's no way that Canelo would have lost a second fight against Floyd. He's got
every day, fans will still bring up that Floyd Mayweather loss.
Well, they don't know. They don't. Yeah, but
say, oh, you're gonna say he was only 23 then. Which just goes in terms of what you're saying, how he wasn't a completely developed fighter.
Well, the thing is we have a lot of unknowledgeable fans today. They think they're knowledgeable because of the information that's at their fingertips, and I can't. Even the guy that tweeted put the tweet in last night, SMH, you know what, I can't stand it. It's become it's nauseating. But anyway, the two draws, Triple G and Jorge Juarez, which was in his 5th fight. And aside from that, 38 knockouts with 56 wins. I mean, the guy, I don't think he's gonna have a problem with Plant. I really don't. And we'll see what happens. I don't know what other fights will be on that card, but I'm looking forward to it really for the unification of the super middleweight division.
Yeah, like I said early on, it will. What just real quick to touch on lack of knowledge of fans is I love how fans were sitting there saying, "Oh, he's ducking Plant. He's making excuses. He wants an easier fight." So the easier fight was Beterbiev?
No, that's not
the fight he wanted to make. That's the easier fight than Caleb Plant.
No way. That's going to be. That might be.
There's holes in Beterbiev's game. What's the hole in Beterbiev's game other than the fact that he's going to punch a hole through you?
Yeah, no. I mean, the thing is that the Canelo Alvarez, they try to get the best fight that will bring in the most money. What's wrong with that? A unification fight is an interest. People are interested in that. I don't even remember if the super middleweight division has been unified in recent times. I don't think so. It's not
since Andre Ward.
Yeah, it's a division that needs a guy like Canelo. It's an exciting division. The guys are big. It needs a guy like Canelo. I just don't think Plant is going to give him the challenge. And the other thing about that is there's nobody else in the division either, at least right now. So it'd be interesting to see what happens in the fight and then where Canelo goes from there. But the next fight we're going to do a post-fight show after, unless something else comes up sooner. The Anthony Joshua Oleg Usyk fight. I know you've been a big fan of Usyk since he's been hit the scene, even when he was a cruiserweight, and I didn't think he had a chance against AJ at all. But lately I'm starting to think, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe Usyk does have a chance against Joshua. Maybe Joshua is going to take him lightly. What's your thoughts preliminarily on that fight between Usyk and Joshua on the 25th of September?
It's funny, with that fight, more or less, where you go to how you're saying Canelo early on, and then we see the transition of fighters. Remember, Usyk at one point in time actually lost to Sean Porter in the amateurs. And then, Usyk goes on to become the unified. Matter of fact, Usyk holds the record for the quickest unification bout. The fighter to unify all 4 world titles and the lineal title, the quickest in history. And, Jermaine Taylor, he didn't unify them all in one fight. He got them off of Bernard Hopkins, who unified them at 31. Teofimo Lopez, he did it in 16 fights, but, he also had to go through Lomachenko, who had the majority of the belts. But Usyk actually collected those belts one by one. And Usyk, on paper, it seems like, okay, he's not going to be able to deal with the size and power of Anthony Joshua. But Anthony Joshua, while he is, I think, a more mobile fighter, and I think he is a little bit better overall, I do not believe he hits any harder than Joe Joyce, which Usyk, when he fought Joe Joyce, after he got stunned a little bit, he just boxed circles around Joe Joyce. And I can see that happening in the Anthony Joshua fight. And if you've looked at Usyk lately in recent pictures, Usyk looks like a more or less a Ukrainian version of Evander Holyfield.
Yeah, well, he's got the time to get in, get comfortable in the weight class, and it's going to be interesting to see. The fight. And
Usyk does things that I remember hearing you and Alex talk about the power, and Alex talking about maybe not 1, not 2, not 3. The thing with Usyk is, and matter of fact, Anatoly Lomachenko is training him for this fight. The thing with Usyk, the beauty part is, Usyk loves to use volume and angles just like Vasyl Lomachenko does, but every now and then Usyk will just throw in the middle of when the guy thinks, oh, I'm just getting pity patted. All I got to do is cover up here. All of a sudden, then Usyk lands a power punch, and that's where all his knockouts have come from, both that cruiserweight and that heavyweight.
Well, we'll see. I mean, I think Anthony Joshua does, possess boxing ability, and I think that's what makes it interesting. We'll see who can outbox the other and sprinkle in some power. We know Joshua can get the power, but can he hit? Can he hit him flush? That's going to be the question. In October, thanks to COVID, we pushed back the Fury Wilder 3 fight. It's a fight that I just can't. And it's even getting more bizarre that Joe Goosen was saying that Malik Scott's going to be helping him more than what's his name did, not Taylor. I'm drawing a blank. Who was the trainer that just left Tyson Fury? I mean Deontay Wilder. Mark Breland. I went blank there for a second. But to suggest that Malik Scott is a better trainer, or at least will be better for Tyson Fury than Mark Breland, I thought, to me, it was laughable. Your thoughts?
Well, first of all, they're trying to play an angle and sell that. Malik Scott, when he was active, was B-level at best. Then there was, of course, those rumors for years that when he fought Deontay Wilder, that he actually took a dive.
Because they're good friends, right?
Yeah, exactly. But those were one of the things that when we spoke about, I had did a pretty in-depth video about how this fight, this actually is an advantage for Deontay Wilder, who I don't think is mentally ready. After the beating that he took, after all that stuff that we had to endure for over a year, whether or not family claiming that his brother claiming that his skull was caved in. If the skull was caved in, he wasn't going to be walking around, you idiot. And then, then we have the costume. But then, okay, if the costume was so heavy, how come you're showing these videos of you running it, jumping around in 40-pound vest? Now, when you start, any fighter starts with the whole thing that Deontay Wilder does every time before. Well, I want a body. I'm going to kill. I know I'm going to. He's talking himself up. He's building himself up. He's trying to gain confidence in himself. And in my opinion, he needed more time to gain that confidence in himself. And there is nothing that Malik Scott can teach him that Mark Breland couldn't. And I also had mentioned in that video, which I made before COVID, that if Deontay Wilder would have just listened to Mark Breland, learned how to throw the jab like Mark Breland was teaching him, and Lennox Lewis tried to teach him. And with Deontay Wilder's build, he could have been a Mark Breland of the heavyweight division with one-punch power and pretty much, indestructible at this point in time.
I agree. He had the height, he had the arm reach, but because he's got those people in his ear, he relies on the one punch. He'll do it again. The outcome's going to not be any different. Not unless Tyson Fury just takes it so lightly and gets caught. Because Wilder can knock out Fury. There's no question about it.
He has that one-punch power.
Right.
Like you mentioned before, saying, Tyson Fury leans on him. And people forget again, too, is that Tyson Fury, even before anybody else said it, even before Tyson Fury threw an uppercut and punched himself in the face, Manny Stewart said he is going to be a future world champion. He spent time early in his career at Kronk Gym, even before he went over to his Uncle Peter. And that is where he learned that style that made Vladimir Klitschko and Lennox Lewis all-time greats. When Vladimir Klitschko and Lennox Lewis were fighting, remember, the average heavyweight was between 6'2" and 6'3". A 6'4" heavyweight was big. Now, Deontay Wilder is that 6'2", 6'3", or 6'4" heavyweight compared to Tyson Fury at 6'9" at 270 pounds.
Yeah, no, Wilder's 6'7", isn't he?
Yeah, but I'm saying in comparison.
I got you. Yeah.
Against 6'2", 6'3", and 6'4" opponents is what Wilder is compared to a 6'9", 270-pound Tyson Fury.
Right. Well, the knock on Wilder has always been he doesn't possess any other skill besides power. And you're right. Malik Scott is not going to teach him more than Mark Breland did. It's just, I think it's a clear case. Deontay Wilder is like a punk because he's not holding himself accountable for his own mistakes. He's pointing fingers everywhere else. And, you know, it's not just Wilder. A lot of people do that today in the world. I mean, nobody holds themselves accountable anymore, and it's unfortunate. But
I remember when Wilder was knocked out in the amateurs. Do you remember talking about, you know, how he doesn't, when Wilder, he gets over anxious and he's looking for that knockout too hard? Do you remember when Bernard Hopkins and Jean Pascal were going to have their rematch, and they were doing more or less like one of those 24/7s just before the second fight, and Bernard Hopkins is making fun of Jean Pascal.
I love
leaning
that.
down, and he's twirling his arms around in circles. And
I
and
love
we've seen
that.
Deontay Wilder do just that, try and twirl his arms and bull his way in and hope that he would just get close enough and land a big punch.
I loved when B-Hop did that. That was one of my favorite things when he
So
was...
you remember that?
Oh, I do, distinctly. Whenever I think of those two, that's all that pops into my head. I can't even remember the fight, but I remember that when Bernard was making fun of him. I'm glad you brought that up. Hey, one last thing. What was your thoughts on the Larry Merchant interview?
It was good to see Larry. Larry's been around a long time. When you and Alex were talking about that, I was thinking to what you were talking about just a little bit before, saying, and I know, you know, how much that you love Sonny Liston as a fighter. People forget that Larry Merchant, in that all-time famous, iconic picture of Muhammad Ali standing over,
he's right in it. I'm looking at it. I'm looking at
Larry Merchant is in the fourth row. He was a young writer at the time.
Yes, I have the photo right here in the studio, and you could see him. You know, you could see him in it.
And the other thing, me and John, I was a guest on Johnny Sig's show, which you were too, and you guys had mentioned earlier, Alex had brought up that last night reminded him very much of Sugar Ray versus Terry Norris. And I remember talking with Johnny, and I mean, you've discussed this before. I remember being at that fight with Burt Sugar. That was actually the first major professional fight I ever covered. And, you know, I could see the comparison, which Alex was kind of saying, where, you know, faded off, you know, where he had really faded down against a younger, stronger, bigger fighter. But hopefully, unlike Sugar Ray, Manny's smart enough not to fight again and end up being knocked out. Yeah,
well, hopefully Manny is smart enough not to fight again. But so before we let you go, you know, we're going to be doing this new segment. It's going to be actually it's going to be a show that we're going to just do a different format, and I'm going to try and do it once a month in addition to covering these bigger fights. But one of the ideas I had was, you know, I want to, you know, have special guests on or whatever. And one of the things I was thinking about was the work that you do with the amateurs down by you. I was wondering if that could be on our schedule, coordinate that at some point, maybe do a show from the gym. And, you know, it doesn't have to be a long show or what have you, but do a show from the gym and get to possibly see a couple of these young kids sparring and talking with them, and you know, you think there'd be some interest there?
Yeah, they're definitely. Matter of fact, right now in the works is a possible pro show down in Newburgh in the end of November. I mean, Elijah, who I mentioned on this show, he made his pro debut on the 14th, the same night that Virgil Ortiz knocked out Kavaliakis down in I believe it was South Dakota, or South Carolina rather, not Dakota. But you know, in the amateur scene, yeah, it's definitely interesting. I'm not really a big fan of USA boxing, but you know, in terms of, you know, the kids and stuff like that, I think it would be great. And I believe that, you know, a lot more of these gyms, not just ours, but the amateur gyms in period, they just need a lot more attention like it used to be. Remember gym visits that a lot of places used to do, and I believe, you know, that is something that would be great for these kids, and not just, you know, at that gym, but any gym.
Oh yeah, no. We're gonna you and I have to chat about that. We're gonna be doing some fun stuff, and you know, to feed the fever that we all have, where we can't get it from our sport that we love. At least I can. And this show has always been focused on the historical aspect. And, you know, I just feel that it's time that we cater to the people that enjoy the show, and most of them like to hear about the historical aspect, plus sprinkle in with the current events, whereas a lot of the younger fans think they know it all because they've watched boxing for the last 2 years. So
I think actually every fan, especially these fans that talk about and criticize fighters, they should have to be forced to, at minimum, like last month when we were up in the Catskills, and there was about 25 other gyms there, and it was open sparring, and everybody was just going out there letting it all hang out. You know what, come in there, just visit, and then it's open sparring. So, you know what, can I get an opportunity to step in there and spar? And I guarantee you, whether or not you're sparring against a 14-year-old or a 20-year-old who's getting ready to make their debut, who's a top-level amateur, or, they've only had 1 or 2 fights, all of a sudden you're going to have a whole new respect for that sport, because in the gym, whether or not it's New York, whether or not it's California, and certainly back in the Philly days, to be there and see what, it's like when these guys get in there and they're preparing, especially those gym wars. If you're not used to being in that environment, it can actually be kind of intimidating.
Let me tell you something. When I owned a gym in Poughkeepsie, people would come in.
And there's one there too. There's one there too now. Yes, I was talking about that. There's one there. We were just there about 2 weeks ago.
Where?
It's up over on Main Street, on Upper Main Street. I forget where Snoop. I was saying, talking about the show. I was saying it started out at Snoop's, and I forget exactly where Snoop's was located.
Right on Main Street. That's where that was our gym. And Snoop's was our gym, and right on Main Street. The sign is still there, so I don't know. So I don't know if there's somebody was telling me, they think they opened up a place. It's called Snoop's. I'm like, no, it's the same sign. They haven't taken it down. But anyway, people used to come in that never boxed, and they're just checking it out. And all the young kids, I say kids, they all they think it's I say I'll give any one of you $20 right now if you can hit that heavy bag nonstop for 1 minute. Everybody says they can do it. I never coughed up at 20.
No, never. People don't realize exactly how hard it is just to work out.
1 minute. Well, they don't realize how long a minute is when you're going all out on a heavy bag either.
Yeah, when you can't stop.
Right.
When you just have to, continuously. My good thing is, with our gym is, and Newburgh, and it's there's a lot of revitalization, and the gym has actually been taking part in a lot of events. Matter of fact, there was one going on today. I was at one yesterday, and there was actually a national night out about 2 weeks ago where right in the middle of Broadway, we had the gym, we had the ring set up, and they were sparring for about 2.5 hours. It was open sparring, open invitation. And you know something? The only people not from the gym that got into the ring were under 10 years old.
Wow. Well, I'm glad to hear that the gym is doing well.
None of the men or, the other tough guys were, willing to take that chance.
No. Well, I'm glad that Newburgh needs that, and I'm glad you're in the middle of that stuff. So, Dax, it's been a pleasure. We look forward to the next time, and you and I are going to talk during the week, my man.
All right, everybody, enjoy your day.
Take care, Dax. That's my man, Daxx Khann, giving us his thoughts on the fight and some fights coming up. And some stuff that we'll be doing in the near future. Well, I want to thank everybody for joining us. Again, I want to thank everyone that's been emailing us over the last several weeks. And continue to do that. Billy at Talkin' Boxing, TalkinBoxing.com. Look forward. I'm looking forward to doing our new segment that we're going to do. We're going to try to be on a lot more as the summer closes, and hopefully we'll get some big fights like we have already on the schedule for the fall and beginning of winter. So hopefully we can increase that and do more shows. So let us know what your thoughts are. Feel free, like I said, drop me an email, Billy at Talkin' Boxing, TalkinBoxing.com. I want to thank the Title Bout Championship computer game. If you're looking for a simulation game that we use, by the way, and we will be using it when we do these events, there's none other than the Title Bout. It's constantly updated, the database. It's been worked on since the 70s. So check it out. Download yourself a copy today. Visit our website, BillyCBoxing.com, and click on the title about banner. Also, SouthernGourmetSpice.com. You know it's my favorite place for all my spices. Make sure you tell them Billy C sent you and demand the Billy C discount. And one last thing. The holidays are right around the corner. Get yourself half a dozen copies of Tom Molyneux, From Bondage to Baddest Man on the Planet. It's available right now, Amazon.com or Barnes & Noble. Just Google Tom Molyneux, From Bondage to Baddest Man on the Planet. Hey, it was great being with you guys again today. And until next time, I'll say this. Make sure you tune in. Same time, same channel. Until then, ciao, baby.